This video is brought to you by airmodels.net.
Half-moon-shaped bones on the wrist. It's no wonder these guys learn how to fly. No, seriously. All right. Well, maybe dinosaurs have more in common with present-day birds than they do with reptiles.
Look at the pubic bone, turned backward, just like a bird. Look at the vertebrae, full of air sacs and hollows, just like a bird.
And even the word raptor means bird of prey.
Actually, it means plunderer.
It must be difficult being the best in the world at something, but unable to prove it. I can't really relate to that. I don't consider myself an expert in, well, anything. But imagine you're a boxer, trained from birth to be the best of all time. However, your one and only fight to date was when you punched a balloon so hard it popped. That's pretty much the F-22. As far as anyone is concerned, if you want the best air-to-air weapon ever flown, the Raptor is what you're looking for. Designed from the ground up to be the deadliest plane in the air, this thing has only ever shot down like 3 other airborne targets outside of war games. Now, the history of this jet is an interesting one. Some say it never should have been adopted. It's gone from being phased out to now being refit for the future. It was birthed to keep the sky clear, but has mostly only ever dropped bombs. It was envisioned to make up a fleet of almost 1,000 planes, but less than 200 were ever built. A little too late for the Cold War and a little too early for the information era. The pinnacle that other world powers have tried to copy and none fully could. And lastly, it's the disguise of an alien robot. Now, it's impossible to talk about the F-22 without talking about the ATF. No, not that one, this one. This was an endeavor by the US to make a baby between the F-117 and the F-15. They had seen how effective the Nighthawk's stealth was and what a powerhouse the F-15 was in air superiority. They had the old chocolate in my peanut butter craving. They put out calls for a design for a low observable air superiority fighter and got several back. The 2 designs that were chosen for prototyping were from Northrop and Lockheed, surprise, surprise, the 2 companies that had managed to produce stealth planes in the past. Northrop's design was dubbed the YF-23, nicknamed the Black Widow. The engineers even painted a red hourglass on the bottom before the fun police had them remove it. Now, this thing had a lot of interesting design choices. The most notable was its diamond wing shape. It also housed the engine nozzles above the fuselage to help mask its IR signature, just like the F-117 and the B-2 do. It was actually the more stealthy of the 2 designs and was even faster. A lot of people to this day think it should have been chosen over the YF-22, the Lockheed prototype. There are several hypothesized reasons as to why the YF-23 didn't get selected. The most plausible being that the F-22 was more maneuverable. It would be more practical for carrier operations since the Navy had expressed interest. Lockheed had actually fired some missiles in testing, and that Northrop had a habit of going over budget with their contracts. Whatever the reason, the YF-23 never made it past its 2 prototype airframes, which you can still see in museums if you're interested. Now, its competitor, the YF-22, became the F-22 Raptor. Interestingly enough, after Lockheed won the design phase, they completely scrapped the design they had submitted. Like, how is that even allowed? The new design is the one that would go on to win. While not as stealthy as the Black Widow, it was still very sneaky. I thought about covering the aspects and history of stealth in this video, but I'm going to give Laserpig a plug and send you over to watch his video, Stealth, a Controversy. It's linked in the description. Anyway, the F-22 was, and still is, very stealthy. Exact RCS numbers aren't known, but I've heard the term bumblebee-sized. No, not that one, this one. On top of that, it incorporated a technique called thrust vectoring. Essentially, this allows the plane to change the angle at which the thrust from the engines is coming from. In the Raptor's case, up or down by 20 degrees. The Raptor isn't the first plane to do this. Many Russian fighters are able to thrust vector, as well as one cool research F-15 NASA owns. Thrust vectoring in these cases is used for super maneuverability, allowing the planes to fly in ways conventional thrust-driven airframes simply could not. Thrust vectoring can also be used to VTOL, like in the F-35 and Harrier. The Raptor carries 2 sidewinders, 1 in each side bay. As far as I know, these are dedicated AIM-9 rails. I've never seen anything else in them. The belly weapons bay can carry up to 6 AIM-120 AMRAAMs or some ground munitions missions, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It also carries an M61 Vulcan 20mm with a modest 480 rounds. While the original intent was for it to carry the B-61 nuclear bomb, and the bomb could, in theory, fit inside the Raptor's weapons bay, it was never certified for this role and has never carried it. It also has 2 hardpoints on the wings, which have been seen with drop tanks, but could also carry weapons if needed, similar to the F-35's Beast Mode. The only variant to ever fly was the F-22A, although a 2-seat F-22B was proposed, and plans were in the work for a naval variant that never received a designation. A larger winged version was also explored to export to Japan, and another similar version dubbed the FB-22 Strike Raptor, which may have beaten the X-32 for the world's ugliest stealth fighter. The cockpit of the F-22, while not as modern as the F-35, still incorporates more digital controls than something like the F-16 or F-18. The biggest noteworthy feature for the cockpit is the bubble canopy. For those of you unsure what this means, planes like the F-15 or F-35 feature a canopy bow, a large arc usually right in front of the field of view of the pilot that usually splits the canopy so the entirety of the glass doesn't need to be moved. This can obstruct enemy aircraft or ground targets from the pilot visually. The F-16 and F-22 both feature a single piece of glass to make up the windshield, also called a bubble canopy, giving the pilot an unobstructed view, which can help with situational awareness in close-range dogfights. I've heard some pilots say while the view is unbeatable, it can be very disorienting, especially at night. The canopy is also coated with an iridium tin oxide, giving it its goldish tint. This helps keep radar from bouncing around inside the cockpit and further reduces the radar cross-section. It also looks fucking sick. If you've seen my videos before, you know how much I dislike Pierre Sprey, the bag of shit that has somehow gained enough self-awareness to lie about designing the A-10, F-15, and F-16. Sprey managed to get away with this because he claims he was friends with an Air Force colonel who made a sick-as-fuck PowerPoint. No, not that one, this one. Now, while Sprey had everyone fooled about his credentials, he loved to talk shit on the, at the time, new 5th-gen fighters the US were developing, the F-35 and F-22. He claimed the F-22 would be downed by a 50 cal or a single rifle hit would cause it to go up in flames. He also claimed that stealth in general was a scam since World War II radar could detect the aircraft, and while long wavelength, low frequency radar can detect stealth planes, it will also detect clouds, other radiation sources like radio or cell signals, birds, or even the sun. It can't provide tracking or targeting data, just hey, there might be a plane mixed in with everything else in the world over there to the east-ish. He also claimed things like the glue used in the Raptor's stealth coating caused pilots to suffer from hypoxia when flying at Mach 1.6 or higher, despite Sprey not having any access to the classified specs of the RAM coating or anything to do with the project outside of what's publicly known.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
The man did everything he could to throw shade at anything he wasn't claiming to have a hand in, even though all he ever did was demand the F-15 be stripped of anything useful before being escorted out of a meeting. Sprey claimed that the F-22 was unsuited for air-to-ground missions, and that everything he said about the plane was proven true since the F-22 was never used in the Middle East conflicts. Now, the Raptor was used in the Middle East, eventually, against the Russian Wagner PMC group where it dropped GPS-guided bombs. Oh yeah, it can carry up to 2 GBU-38s or 8 GBU-39s, so it can do ground attack missions. But that was in more recent times, 2018. The main reason the F-22 wasn't used in the Middle East before then was because almost all F-22 squadrons are stationed in the US as interceptors, most notably in Alaska and Hawaii to deter Russian aircraft. Sprey chooses to ignore this, as he does the limitations of long wavelength, low frequency radar, the effectiveness of 5th-gen aircraft, and general reality. Everything Sprey ever predicted turned up eggs, and if you haven't heard, he died in 2021. Rest in piss, won't be missed. The service record of the F-22 isn't as crazy as something like the F-15. It's actually pretty short. In 2013, Iran detected a UAV over international waters near their borders. 2 Su-25 Frogfoots were sent to intercept it, but they missed and returned home. Later that year, when the UAV was detected again, Iran sent 2 F-4 Phantoms out to intercept. As the Phantoms approached their target, one pilot looked over to his left and saw an F-22 had joined their formation. The F-4s never detected the aircraft on radar. The F-22 pilot simply told them to go home, and they complied. Now, did it occur just like that? I'm not sure, but it's a fun story. Similar situations have happened with Russian bombers on patrol over the Pacific, with F-22s intercepting and escorting them back towards Asia. As I mentioned before, it did do some ground strikes in Syria against the Russian Wagner PMC group and forces allied with them as they attacked a US base in 2018. The most notable and publicly known operation of an F-22 was when a suspected Chinese spy balloon was seen floating over the US in 2023. While it was first seen in the northern US, it soon floated over the southern East Coast, where an F-22 was ordered to shoot it down using an AIM-9. That was the first air-to-air kill for the Raptor. Soon after, although not seen by all of America, Raptors shot down similar objects over Alaska. Since then, the air-to-air kill record has again gone dormant, as far as the public knows. The future of the Raptor has been up in the air since the Obama presidency, where production of the plane was ordered to be halted. For a while, it was planned to be replaced by the F-35 and then the Next Generation Air Dominance or NGAD plane. However, in the 2020s, plans for a new and improved Super Raptor have been in the works. This includes new avionics, new suspected EW pods found mounted under the wings, and even a new chrome coating, which has been spotted on old F-117s and F-35s. The chrome coating is theorized to be a countermeasure against IR-guided weapons. I could also see them being used against DEW or direct energy weapons, aka lasers. As of now, from what I've read, the Raptor should be in service at least until the 2030s, if not past. It's still a very competitive aircraft, with the retrofits including data link and new sensor integration. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an F-22 EX style variant soon, complete with all the bells and whistles of the F-35, but with the sports mode, Crocs with the strap-back performance of the F-22. So that's the F-22 in a nutshell. Turn fast, sneaky, look cool. Now let's compare it to some video games. I got to explore some new games for this one, as well as a very old favorite of mine. But before we jump in, I want to talk to you about airmodels.net. If you're anything like me, you love detailed, high-quality models of cool stuff. I see you working on the 40K kit right now. The sponsor of today's video, airmodels.net, is here to bring you premium, ready-to-display, die-cast metal scale models of all your favorite aircraft. The F-22 model I used in this video is from airmodels.net, and it'll be on display in my house going forward. If you'd like to get your hands on the same Raptor as me, and if you want to help support the channel, then head on down to the description, where I have an affiliate link for this exact F-22 172 scale model. They ship worldwide, so anyone can get their very own Raptor. Thanks again to airmodels.net for sponsoring this video. And now let's get to the games.
A terrorist base destroyed by American forces while defending
Our
civilians.
victorious forces continue their liberation
against a spreading America and China reporting
in
several
today's Security Council session.
Tensions are high.
senseless American aggression once more fills the
Our
sky.
premier again denied involvement with
The military had the fragmented Global Liberation Army on the
Splinter
run.
groups vying for
The
control.
American response is its signature shock and awe campaign.
China is here to help our European comrades.
The United States believes that a general, codenamed Dr. Threats, is running the lethal program.
Humiliating America by penetrating its own borders and raiding its weapons of mass destruction.
Further transmission may be difficult.
I have a weird relationship with Command & Conquer in that this entry in the franchise is the only one I've ever played. I've never played Red Alert, I've never played Tiberian Sun. From what I've seen though, Generals is the least goofy of the games, and that's saying something because this shit goofy as hell. You have suicide bombers, flamethrower tanks, slave workers, and orbital lasers. The voiceovers in this game are pure cinema.
I want to blow something up.
Can I have some shoes?
I build for China.
AK-47s for everyone!
Minigunner reporting for duty.
The game is from 2003, so the graphics are pretty dated. Most RTS games from this time period look like StarCraft and are sprite-based, the big exception being Warcraft 3 in 2002. I'd say for the amount of units you can have on screen, the graphics are pretty decent. Worth noting, this is the first and only RTS game I have ever played that doesn't have a unit cap. So if you want to spam 18,000 infantry to storm a base, you can. Now, the US has access to the most aircraft, stuff like the A-10, the B-52, the F-117, and of course the F-22. Each airfield can house up to 4 fighters, and each F-22 carries 2 missiles, each of which can attack either ground or air targets. Like most other units in the game, you can set them to guard an area and even specify if you want them to only attack air units. The expansion, 0 Hour, allows you to pick certain specialized generals to play as. Each faction has 3. For example, China has a tank general, an infantry general, and a nuclear general. The American faction has an Air Force general who has an upgraded F-22 called the King Raptor. This variant sports a black cross on its livery, houses 6 missiles, and comes with laser countermeasures to shoot down any missiles that get too close, in addition to traditional countermeasures that can be unlocked via an upgrade for all US planes. While there is a stealth mechanic in the game and the F-117 uses it, they decided not to give that ability over to the Raptor, most likely due to balancing. It's probably the best air-to-air fighter in the game, the only other one from another faction being the MiG, yes, just MiG, that the China faction uses. All in all, it acts more like an F-15, but this was my first introduction to F-22s ever, and it holds a very special place in my heart. Generals is probably the oldest game I play, one I've been playing since I was in middle school, so for a good 20-ish years now. I still pop it on every now and again, and hell, maybe I'll even do a stream of it here soon. AK-47s for everyone.
Everybody get up, it's time to slam now. We got the real jam going down. Welcome to the Space Jam. It's your chance, do your dance at the Space Jam.
I've really been wanting to play this game for about a year, but never got around to it. Well, here's my excuse. If you've seen my other videos before, I'm sure you know how big of a VTOL VR fan I am, and this game is pretty much just flat screen VTOL. It's a sim-like flight game with fictional near-future aircraft, and it's a blast.
Oh my god. I get it.
You can play with just mouse and keyboard, but I'd recommend using at least a gamepad. It does support track IR and custom HOTAS binding too, which is how I played it. Oh, and I get asked this a lot, so here it is. I run a Logitech X56. It is pretty okay. It looks cool, but I'd rather have a Virpil setup. Maybe one day. Now that we did that, back to the game. I've heard that there is a very good VR mod available for nuclear option and that native VR support is on the roadmap. Once that happens, this game will be on the list of all-time favorites. Anyway, the F-22 in this game is called the KR-67 Ifrit, but it's not a pure F-22. I see people call this a YF-23, and the twin V-tail definitely came right off the Black Widow, but that's all I see from that airframe on here. The intakes and belly speak Felon to me. No, not that one, this one. And I can see that as a good choice to incorporate because I see this as an amalgamation of a few different 5th gen airframes. The engines, wings, body, and nose, however, are certainly F-22. I'm still fairly new to the game, but it's my understanding that while RCS can and does play a role, especially in terms of attitude, stealth isn't really a thing here. The Ifrit does come with some internal weapons, but I don't believe flying slick wings will give you any tangible advantage. range. If I'm wrong about that, please let me know in the comments. The plane does feature working thrust vectoring, and disabling the flight assist allows you to pull off cobras and other high angle of attack maneuvers. As per the game's namesake, it can carry nuclear weapons consisting of a cruise missile and some dumb bombs, with a 1.5 kiloton payload and a 250 kiloton payload. So you can level a few city blocks or level a city. The game is much more tactical and fun when you're not using the nukes, in my opinion. When being locked on by enemy radar, the game actually provides you with a vector to notch the missiles, which is very useful. In addition to flares, you also have electronic countermeasures, so you can jam radar-guided missiles as they approach. I still haven't flown everything in nuclear option, and they even have new airframes coming out soon after this video is posted, but so far, the KR-67 is my favorite in the game. I love the look of it, I love the F-35S cockpits all the airframes use, I love the RWR systems and the weapons. If and when this game receives native VR support and multi-crew functionality, it may even top VTOL for me. If you want to support nuclear option, the Discord is linked in the description. I'll definitely be playing more of this game in the future. It does support multiplayer PvP and PvE, so make sure you're subscribed and in the Discord if you want to join in with me.
What the hell was that? What are you talking about? What do you mean we're not talking about? They shot at us! F-22 pilots would never fly below buildings. That's alien. That ain't friendly.
Ace Combat needs to take notes here. Flying arcade games like this in VR is something special, and if Ace Combat 8 doesn't have full native VR support, they are going to take the biggest L. I covered Project Wingman in my F-14 video, and we're back here today to fly the VX-23. Now, it's designated as 23, so your first instinct may be to assume this is a YF-23 clone, not an F-22 clone. Well, that's where you're wrong. Even if the layout of the plane is kind of similar to the Black Widow, in terms of actual shape, there is zero YF-23 in this thing. This is more akin to the F-45, F-35, and VTOL. They moved the wings back and gave it canards. That's it. That is the meme. The cockpit is F-22, the engines are F-22, the vertical stabilizers are F-22. I don't know why they call it a 23. Anyway, this thing maneuvers incredibly, as do all planes in Project Wingman, but this thing in particular. If paired with the AOA limiter, this thing can fly like an FPV drone. The bubble canopy in VR is fantastic, and the game has stunning clouds and environments. It does utilize wing-mounted pylons as well as an internal weapons bay, and can equip AGM-65 style missiles for ground attack if needed, as well as some dumbfire bombs. You unlock the plane fairly late into the game, just after the game goes orange.
Disrespect your surroundings!
But you can use it in free missions and new games if you want to do a full run with it. I think this and the Su-25 lookalike are my favorite planes of Project Wingman. The only real downside to this plane is its single seat, so no prez.
I did my time and I want out, so if you say I'm fine, it doesn't cut. The soul is not so vibrant. The reckoning, the sickening, packaging subversion, pseudo-sacrosanct perversion. Go drill your deserts, go dig your graves, then fill your mouth with all the money you will save. Sinking in, getting smaller again. I'm done, it has begun. I'm not the only one. And the rain will kill us all. We throw ourselves against the wall. No one else can see the preservation of the modern.
So, remember how I just said I wish Ace Combat had VR? Some of you are probably saying, but mimiaga, it does on PlayStation. Yeah, well, I don't have one of those. I do have the power of mods and Google, though. I will say,
I'm kind of retarded.
so getting this mod set up and working really tested me. 3 hours of looking through annoyingly organized Discords, trying to log into Nexus, and ignoring it begging me for money. The mod breaking and hurting my eyes, but I did finally get it. I admit I almost gave up on the mod. I was very frustrated. But once it was working, damn, did it work. But that's all just icing on the cake for this section. Let's talk about the F-22 in Ace Combat. Like I said in the Tom Cruise video, there are certain airframes that every Ace Combat needs, and the Raptor is certainly one of them. But we also have the YF-23 here and the goofy-ass FB-22. Cockpit-wise, the Bomber and standard Raptors are identical. The Bomber just has a bit of a dumpy on them. Weapons-wise, they do carry different loadouts. The Raptor carrying what I call better sidewinders, GBU-53s and AIM-120s. Interestingly enough, if you choose the AIM-120s, rather than only carry them internally, the Raptor will carry the coffin pods for a total of 14 missiles on the aircraft at once. If you choose the better sidewinders, those are stored internally, as are the GBUs. The FB-22 carries the GBU-53s as well, but also what I think may be an AIM-260 and a cluster bomb. The YF-23 can go with AIM-7s, AIM-120s, or unguided bombs. A slight error I noticed both here and in Project Wingman is when you have your weapons selected, the corresponding weapon bays remain open in preparation, which isn't how the real F-22 works. The weapon bays remain closed until the pilot wants to fire, at which time they would quickly open and launch the weapons. This is also true on the F-117, F-35, and B-2. Keeping them open like this would exponentially increase the aircraft's radar cross-section and effectively ruin its stealth capabilities. However, stealth isn't really modeled in any useful way in either game, so I guess it's a wash there. As I said, the YF-23 is also here, and funny enough, the cockpit on that is much more rough than the Raptors, which makes sense because it was only ever a prototype. But damn, they didn't even give me a chair. Playing through the campaign here in VR was a blast. Big thanks to the modders who figured it out, but also damn you for making my brain hurt while trying to get it to run properly. If I do use Ace Combat 7 in the future, it'll probably be in VR.
We have a BMP straight in front of us. Do you have visual on it?
Stand by.
It's a little bit north of BP North.
I think I have eyes on. It should be on the right side of your road you're on. A firm?
A firm.
Stand by. Pickle. Oh no, that was Trav. Oh no.
Hammer, you just blew up the wrong thing.
Real fast, before we get into the nitty-gritty of Arma, I've had multiple people tell me that the base game 181 Black Wasp is an F-22. No, it isn't. The Black Wasp is a stealth F-18. Look at it next to the regular F-18. Just look at them next to each other. You can see all the same lines in the macro design. It's just been adopted for low visibility. It's even the F-18 and the F-181. Stop saying it's a Raptor. It isn't. Anyway, the flight model in Arma is probably like a solid 7 out of 10, which isn't great when you compare it to other more hardcore games. Like, yes, it's better than Ace Combat, but not better than Nuclear Option or VTOL. But you have to keep in mind, Arma isn't just a flight sim. It has infantry, armor, boats, sniping, AT-EOD mines, building destruction, base building. It's a whole military simulation, or a mil sim, if you will. So if everything in Arma is at least a 7 out of 10 in terms of realism, then I guess we'll take it. For other planes I've covered on the channel, like the AC-130 or A-10, or even the helicopters like slower moving aircraft, Arma's flight model feels okay. But when you add an F-22 to it, it doesn't feel realistic at all. But that's okay. It feels overpowered as all hell. And isn't that what being an F-22 is all about? Now, the Raptor we're looking at today is a mod. No, not that one, this one. Loadout-wise, it's fairly on point, carrying 6 AIM-120s and 2 AIM-9s by default, but it can also be equipped with small diameter GBUs or even B-21 nuclear weapons. So that's 4 nukes we've seen in this video so far. This plane is by far the most maneuverable aircraft I've seen in Arma. It can turn on a dime at speeds over 500 knots and climb to altitude extremely fast. Fuel consumption is pretty realistic. When in Afterburner, you can watch your line move down in real time. The plane will automatically jam enemy radar locks, which is pretty handy, not having to manually worry about EW. If you have a helmet with an HMD, it can be enabled to see things like airspeed and altitude when not looking directly at the HUD. It does come with the standard Arma targeting pod that's just a 360 camera directly underneath the plane, which isn't particularly accurate as I've never seen a Raptor carrying one, and it doesn't have an EOTS built in like Fat Amy. It does not come with a laser designator though. I did test flying it in some guns only PvP dogfights against several MiGs with the 188th gaslighters, and I did technically win. However, the MiGs were unable to find me most of the time, and when they did, they couldn't manage their energy and some crashed into the ground. But the Raptor was so sensitive, I was unable to get a stable shot off on anyone, so the dogfight ended without a single bullet landing a hit. Air-to-air combat in Arma really isn't the best. It can be serviceable, but again, it's not built for that. Aircraft are at their best in Arma when they're doing anything but, be it interdiction, close air support, recon, or transport. So that leaves the Raptor in a unique place here. But hey, if you want to yeet nuclear fission at someone, it'll get it there fast. Now, I'm going to try and cut DCS a little bit of slack here because yes, this is a mod. And I've been told there's an even higher fidelity mod that isn't available to the public, which seems weird, but that's DCS for you. I could be misinformed about that. Please let me know in the comments. And while I cut it some slack, it's still severely lacking. The F-22 here runs off the F-15C module, which is a lower fidelity module to start with. Sadly, this means a lot of the F-15E-ness carries over. For example, the HUD is F-15. The radar page is F-15. The thrust vectoring only activates with positive pitch, but this is just visual anyway. The vectoring isn't simulated. That being the case, the maneuverability is severely handicapped, making it fly more like an F-15. Stealth in DCS also isn't really simulated, and dynamic RCS isn't a thing either. Your plane shows a perfect ball from every direction. I might sound like I'm being a bit harsh here, but DCS presents itself as a higher standard platform, and when this many things are wrong, it's hard not to call it out. It doesn't feel or perform like an F-22, and since this is the only version I have access to, I'm going to call it like I see it. Yes, as I said before, it's a mod. I know it's not an official module, but the C-130 mod was fantastic, and this feels much more like the F-35 mod in that it's lacking what makes the plane itself. At least it has the right cockpit this time. I will say the best part of this mod is the liveries because it includes Starscreams. Maybe next time, DCS.
If you had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip?
I never thought I'd make a video where MS Flight Sim would quote-unquote win the competition, but here we are. DCS just dropped the ball too hard this time around. We're looking at the F-22 by Top Mock Studios for this one. There is an F-22 and YF-23 made by M Scenery, and avoid these with your life. The YF-23 isn't even remotely a YF-23 and has the reputation of being the worst module in MS Flight Sim, probably any sim.
What the fuck is that?
Anyway, the Top Mock Raptor is very, very high quality. There's no weapons in MS Flight Sim, but if you can ignore that and focus on its flight abilities as a plane, it's very good. Performance is estimated, but just based on what I've seen from footage of real Raptors, this one seems to be pretty on par, or at least very close. Certainly better than the mod in DCS. The livery list is long, although most are just different tail markings. The only liveries of note are a blue nose, a Thunderbird style livery, and one that is unpainted, which I like a lot. Sadly, it does not come with a Starscream livery like in DCS, so I guess it loses a point there. The avionics like the HUD and radar page are actually F-22 this time, and the thrust vectoring is modeled. It can supercruise and hit Mach 2.5 easily. The slow speed acrobatics you can pull off with this are just like what you see Raptors do at air shows, which is why I'm inclined to believe the flight model here is actually very close to life. The cockpit is is mostly clickable, and the views out of the bubble canopy are stunning, as always with MS Flight Sim. Top Mach's Raptor is just as good, if not better, than anything IFE or Heatblur has put out, and I highly recommend it if you want to feel that super maneuverability in a more serious sim. And in my opinion, it's the best F-22 in gaming. It seems kind of odd that the US decided to hoard the F-22 and not sell it overseas due to the possibility of stealth tech being compromised, but then decided to do it anyway with the objectively more advanced F-35. Had they decided to export the Raptor, they probably wouldn't have been as endangered as they are. People like to shit on the F-35, calling it a jack of all trades, master of none, which is a dumb argument anyway. But the F-22 is a great example of why that's not even really a bad thing. The F-22 is a master of air-to-air, but that makes it a lot less flexible. The F-35 is arguably a much more useful aircraft, as it can effectively be deployed in multiple roles, and the number of airframes produced would back up that claim. While the F-22 has done ground attack missions, it's like taking an F-1 car to go get groceries. Like, yes, you can do that, but it's very impractical and expensive when your Honda Civic could do the job much more effectively and at a lower cost. I also want to mention that, yes, in Red Air exercises, Raptors have been shot down by 4th gen fighters. However, it is my understanding that the Raptor had fuel tanks that couldn't be jettisoned, and Raptors were prohibited from engaging in BVR for whatever reason. Anyway, as always, if I missed an important detail or got something very wrong, please let me know down in the comment section. I try my best to read all of them, even if I don't reply to each one. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more in the future, you can support the channel by subscribing, considering becoming a channel member, or using my affiliate link in the description to get your very own F-22 model from airmodels.net. I also have a Discord community, which I have linked down there too, and I'd love to talk to you guys in there. Otherwise, I'll see you all in the next video. So until then, take care.